Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Kev Baker, and a big, huge, warm welcome back to tonight's broadcast of the Kev Baker Show. For all of you out there coming live from Glasgow, Scotland. It's the last show of the week, and we always like to do something special here, week after week, for all of you great people out there. And one of the set series of shows, however you want to kind of frame that I have done throughout my time here on this brilliant network has to be the work that I've done alongside Dr. Erik Karlstrom. Now, we were just talking there before the show, and we reckon we may have done in probably over 20 shows, maybe approaching 30, on the subject of targeted individuals, the people behind it, the methods used, the people that are on the street level perpetrating this, and of course the individuals themselves. And we're certainly going to be carrying on in that vein tonight. However, we're now going to take it one stage further. Because for some time on this show and throughout all of the alternative media, all of you out there, myself included, we've all been hearing and we've been bombarded by information about 5G. I've certainly had my say on the matter, and I think it's as important as possible for all of us to really listen to as many different sources on that information as we can. It's good to get other people's opinions, other people's take on the information that's out there, especially with something as vast as 5G. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing tonight with Dr. Erik Karlstrom in just a moment, because next week I want to kind of tease you as to what we've got coming up. It's going to be a huge week here on the Kev Baker Show. I've got Charlie Robinson joining me on the Monday. He is going to be live, fresh from a conference at which he has taken his first ayahuasca. Yes, we're going to be catching up on all of that. Then on Tuesday, I am potentially going to be joined by John Potash. Now, he's got a new book out called Drugs and Weapons Against Us: The CIA War on Musicians and Activists. Now, this is the kind of stuff that you've heard myself and Doc Karlstrom talking about as well, with Laurel Canyon, the CIA, the military involvement, and all of that stuff, and the culture, basically the counterculture revolutions that have been framed and set up and handed to us. That's going to be absolutely awesome. I can't wait for that show. And then on Wednesday night, we are going to have Ryan Gable. He is coming back onto the show for the second time. I loved being on with Ryan the first time, so I'm really looking forward to that. But with all of that out the way, let's get back to tonight, because like I was saying, tonight is the night that Dr. Erik Karlstrom makes his long-awaited return to the Kev Baker Show. And I say it's long-awaited because the doc had to take a little hiatus. He himself is a targeted individual, and let's just say they were turning the heat up on him. And no wonder, after the work we had been doing previously in the months and the years prior to that. But Dr. Erik Karlstrom, for anyone who doesn't know, is the Emeritus Professor of Geography, California State University in Stanislaus. Now, that's Department of Anthropology and Geography, California State University. And it says here that Erik Karlstrom began teaching right there at the California State University in 1990, after 5 years as an assistant professor at Northern Arizona University, 1 year as a visiting professor at the University of Kansas, and 1 year as an adjunct professor at the University of Wyoming at CSUS, in addition to teaching physical and environmental geography courses, geomorphology, climatology, introduction to physical geography and human ecology. He has also taught courses cross-listed with the geology department, and an honours course called State of the World, the Environmental Perspective. Now, throughout his career, Dr. Karlstrom, or the Doc as I like to affectionately call him, has continued his research programs in soils and geomorphology as a means of reconstructing quaternary paleoclimates. This research has involved field investigations in Montana, northern Arizona, Kansas, Wyoming, Alberta, British Columbia, and in the 1980s, Doc Karlstrom served as an officer of the American Quaternary Association. So with all of that out of the way, and a lot more to add to that very prestigious CV, welcome back, Doc. It is amazing to have you here, sir. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Well, thanks so much, Kevin. It's great to be talking to you again. Yeah, it's an exciting life we have here. Things are changing very fast. I retired from a 30-year teaching career in 2011, and I've really been spending a lot of time. I really haven't retired actually in the sense. I've got 5 websites that I've been maintaining, and one of them is naturalclimatechange.org, which really plays right into my professional background, in paleoclimate studies. And also, of course, when 9/11 happened, I was immediately quite suspicious, and so I had to investigate that. And I have a website now quite huge called 911nwo.com. Another one is San Luis Valley Waterwatch.com, because I have a home in southern Colorado, and the San Luis Valley overlies one of the largest freshwater aquifers in North America. And then the website that really we will be referring to most tonight is gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com website, which is now the largest. I started in 2016 after I realized that I was being stalked and targeted. I wanted to figure out what's going on. So I've been working pretty hard to unravel the details of this very, very covert system. And I think it is going to connect with the 5G rollout and, the Internet of Things and whatnot. I've just redone the home page for my gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com website, and I can go through a little bit of that, if you don't mind, as kind of an introduction. Of course, this whole system is set up to, in such a way that if you complain of what's being done to you, it's pretty easy for, some psychiatrist or some policeman to say, oh, you're crazy, you're delusional, schizophrenic, paranoid, etc. Well, it's designed that way. So I've had to study a lot of different things to make sense of this system. And would you mind if I kind of go through some real kind of short definitions of what these things are to kind of focus our attention?
Absolutely not, Doc. No, this is a great way to kick us off tonight. And obviously, as the show progresses, we're really going to get into the information that the Doc's been uncovering lately as well, which I'm really looking forward to. But the website, Doc, I found it a far slicker experience today when I was navigating my way around that.
Yeah, well, this is, like I say, it's now got something like 900 posts on it, many of which I've written myself, and many are borrowed from other sources, YouTube's and articles, etc. But also many, like you said, we've done, I think, 24 interviews together already, and we put together quite a series, which I'm very proud of, in the sense that it helps educate the public. And as an educator myself, I don't feel like that identity is gone simply because I retired. In fact, I'm an educator now for the duration. That's just who I am. And I also like to think I'm a truth seeker. So let's just briefly define this word gang stalking, and then mind control, and then cults, because that's the name of my website, gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com. Gang stalking is the common term for military intelligence protocols used by the U.S. government, cooperating states, private security firms, and other groups to secretly, incrementally, and systematically destroy persons designated as internal enemies. Most quote-unquote enemies are invented to justify and perpetuate the phony multi-trillion-dollar war on terrorism national security enterprise system. Synonyms for gang stalking include Zersetzung, which is the German scientific word meaning decomposition, disintegration, and corrosion. And that was what was used under the East German Stasi police back when East Germany was a communist nation. Also counterintelligence stalking, organized stalking, workplace mobbing, etc. The system has been developed and deployed over the past century by, quote, security services, intelligence agencies, specifically the Soviet Cheka and the KGB, the East German Stasi police, Operation Gladio and the stay-behind armies in post-World War II Western Europe, the the FBI's COINTELPRO, or counterintelligence program, the CIA's MK Ultra, mind control programs started in the late 40s and 50s, and the CIA's MH Chaos and Phoenix programs in the US and Vietnam, which were quote unquote pacification programs. In other words, programs that took out enemies of the state with often very, very brutal means, especially in Vietnam. Gang stalking protocols incorporate covert soft torture techniques devised by the CIA and quote unquote operational psychologists. That's a new word for me. This really means weaponized psychology, together with electromagnetic or psychotronic weapons that harass, torture, manipulate, and eliminate quote unquote targets, quote unquote adversaries. This global operation is here termed, my term now, Gestapo 666, for Global Intelligence Syndicate, Secret, Satanic, Space-Based Surveillance, Stalking, Tracking, Targeting, Torture, Terrorism, Termination, Transhumanism, and Psycho-Political Policing for Profit, Psychotronic, and Psychological Warfare Operations. Now, that's why I use Gestapo 666, because the whole term is pretty unwieldy, but it does describe, I think, major elements of what this system involves. And so the last part here, today, Gestapo 666 appears to be a key component of the totalitarian UN Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st Century, and the US military's new unconventional world war come full spectrum dominance of planet Earth. Okay, so the people who are experiencing these kinds of targeting operations are not crazy at all. They are often just, normal people who got onto the terrorism watch list one way or the other, and now they're being tortured and terrorized and targeted. And this is what my website is all about, exploring.
That's one of the things that's really shocked me along the way, Doc, is the fact that you would automatically think this kind of thing would be for enemies of the state, people like Snowden, whistleblower level stuff, But what we've come to find is it's absolutely random. Just anyone at all, yes, the people who are a threat, yourself, others out there, absolutely targeted. But then it's just random people. And that's the bit that really shocked me when we started getting into all of this work all that time ago.
Yeah, and even when Dr. Giordano of Georgetown University, neuroscientist who works with DARPA, he said, well, we sometimes select people. We need viable targets, he says, and in order to test our neuroscience and neuroweaponry. Of course, this is with DARPA in collaboration with the Department of Defense. And sometimes we'll select an individual who represents a particular demographic. So I think that, there's been many factors for the selection of individuals to be put into this. But the bottom line is, once you're in the program, you're an it, you're a target. You're no longer a person with your civil liberties, and there's no more due process. So we're dealing with a criminal enterprise. We're dealing with treason. We're dealing with unimaginable criminality on the part of the establishment against citizens. So this of course has to be pointed out and corrected if we're going to have a decent country to live in. Mind control. Okay, this comes in a very big part of this, as we'll see. Since World War II, scores of top secret mind control experiments, including projects MK Ultra, Bluebird, Artichoke, Chatter, MK Off, and MK Delta, MK Search, have and are still being conducted by the CIA and the U.S. military in conjunction with psychologists, psychiatrists, and cognitive neuroscientists at universities, medical facilities, and military bases across America and elsewhere. These programs build upon prior research done at the Tavistock Institute in England and in Nazi and pre-Nazi Germany and elsewhere. They commonly involve the use of non-consenting and unwitting civilians in terminal experiments, much like our modern targeted individuals. The principal goal has always been twofold, and this goes right back to the original MK Ultra documents in 1953. One, to get control, quote unquote, to get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against such fundamental laws of nature, such as self-preservation. That's from the original 1953 MK Ultra remit. And two, to create a psycho-civilized society, in other words, a mind-controlled society, And that's obviously something that the very, very top elite wants. Certainly, it's not something the people have asked for. Could you please, turn us into bio-robots and zombify us so that we can be your slaves? No, of course not. This is not something we voted on. To achieve these ends, all manner of chemicals, biologicals, drugs, electroshock, sleep and sensory deprivation, brain implants, electromagnetic frequencies, and torture techniques have been tested on human subjects. Okay, this is going to have a bearing on 5G because this is a weaponized system that was tested thoroughly back with the MK Ultra. Now, the MK Ultra really broke down into two main, part A and part B. Part A was chemicals and biologicals, and part B was electronic weapons, electrical stimulation of the brain, ESB, and things like that. And so they've been testing these things, at a very high level since the 50s. And Dr. Ronnie Kilda traces these things back even earlier. Okay, and then the third part here is kind of interesting, the cults. In recent centuries, intelligence services have created innumerable cults, including the Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Illuminati, Theosophy, Mormonism, and a host of, I'm going to offend somebody here, and a host of UFO, New Age, and Christian cults, including Scientology, Jonestown, Children of God, Heaven's Gate, Branch Davidians, etc. These cults are...
Doc, I say, if you're not offending somebody these days, you're obviously doing something wrong.
We have to. We have to, because the political correct atmosphere is stifling and it just makes you want to choke and vomit. These cults are mini totalitarian systems that provide cover for controllers to advance secret political agendas, one of which is to subjugate cult members through mind control, other forms of control, and really slavery. A look at Deep Politics reveals that the master cult, and this is based on a lot of research I've done into various fields that we can talk about, is the Judeo-Masonic Illuminati, a satanic cult based on the black magic system of the Jewish Kabbalah. The long-term plan of the quote-unquote slave masters, as spelled out in the Old Testament, Talmud, Kabbalah, Protocols of Zion, and the Communist Manifesto and other documents, is global dominion and enslavement. The phrase tikkun olam, Hebrew for reinvention or repair of the world, refers to the coming Jewish world empire, the Jewish utopia. Under Noahide law, which is Jewish law for Gentiles, all non-Jews or Goyim would be robbed, robotized, enslaved, and or genocided. I'm sorry if this is a little heavy, but I figure it's better to know it than not to know it. In his article, You Are the Enemy, 2014, Preston James, PhD, writer for Veterans Today, identifies America's real rulers as the IZCS, the International Zionist Criminal Syndicate. Okay, now that's going to become relevant as we move along here. So, okay, those are some kind of real short definitions that all of those things are expanded upon in the some 900 posts in my website there. So here's the introductory statement to those who are unfortunate enough now, and usually through no fault of their own, to be quote-unquote targeted individuals. I now prefer the term targeted citizens because we are people after all. We're not just its. So TC, let's call us TCs. If you are a targeted citizen, TC, also known as targeted individual, TI, you have been secretly and extra-legally designated by unknown and unaccountable persons as, quote, an enemy of the state. The full resources of the state, including the civilian sector, are coordinated by the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the FBI to slowly, silently, and secretly torture, terrorize, and kill you. In other words, you're at war. The federal state bureaucracy, collectively termed the interagency, which includes the military, intelligence, paramilitary, that is to say police, private security, and intelligence firms, academic, legal, and civilian sectors, is waging psychological, chemical, and electronic warfare against you. See Mark Emmerich's book, The New World War, Revolutionary Methods for Political Control. As enemy of the state, you are a non-person, very much like the detainees at Guantanamo Bay and the Palestinians. Your constitutionally guaranteed civil liberties and due process of law have been illegally stripped. You have been secretly enrolled in a highly covert program that intelligence services have developed over the past century to terrorize and eliminate political enemies, foreign spies, heads of state, journalists, quote-unquote dissidents, critics of government, activists, etc. Unbeknownst to you, your name probably appeared on a classified secret blacklist, such as the Terrorism Watch List, before your targeting torture began. Bottom line, officially, you are now a target, and no longer a legal person in the eyes of the state. Rather, you are an illegal, quote, covert operation to be executed by military, intelligence, civilian, and any number of non-governmental agencies on behalf of the state. You're a potential contract for thousands of private security firms, such as the FBI spinoff Infraguard and the Israeli Mossad spinoff Black Cube. These and other mercenary and organized crime groups partner with the U.S. government, FBI, DHS, CIA, police agencies, and others to wage the phony war on terrorism against you and millions of others, innocent civilians worldwide. You may also be a non-consensual human guinea pig in one or several of the innumerable DARPA, Pentagon-funded weapons testing and mind control programs and experiments now being carried out secretly and globally, which involve hundreds to thousands of neuroscience, biology, computer science departments at universities and medical facilities.
Now, that Black Cube that you mentioned just a moment ago, they were in the news just recently because that was the kind of private contractors, private investigators that Harvey Weinstein actually ran to try and cover up all of that mess before we ended up with the Me Too movement. And that was one of the first times I'd come across them, Doc, and it's interesting to hear you mention them here because they are basically like the private. When you leave Mossad, you go into Black Cube, right? Exactly. That's how it works. You know, these intelligence people will retire, you know, often fairly young at a fairly high retirement salary, and then go into the private sector through the revolving door, where they carry out basically the same functions and double or triple or quadruple their salary. So the Black Cube would have been staffed and founded by very top Mossad and Shin Bet operatives, and then they would hire themselves out to rich people like Harvey Weinstein, I think, is one of those billionaires, I don't know. But anyway, he molested a whole bunch of women. And then when they complained about it, he hired Black Cube to go do surveillance on them. Actually, what they were doing is gang stalking. They were doing the same kind of harassment protocols that I'm talking about. So it's not just governments. It's a whole series of protocols that can be used by private sector groups like Harvey Weinstein, being a rich person, he could afford to pay Black Cube to do this. And the fact that it has come out now kind of shines a light on this really, really rotten phenomenon that is metastasizing like cancer around the world, I think. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up Black Cube. But they also were involved in the whole, you know, Donald Trump thing with the Soviet Union, or excuse me, Russia, and the 2016 campaign, and all that. The dodgy dossier from the ex-MI6 agent Christopher Steele. And of course, MI6, they'll have a similar private contractors where people can leave there and go and work for them. That's the way this intelligence game works, Doc, right? Yeah, it's a huge business, as we'll see. I mean, you know, $9 trillion has been transferred in the United States federal budget from social programs to the War on Terrorism National Security Enterprise Complex since 9/11. So 9/11 then formed the impetus for this radical change in how government operates. And now, of course, as we move to this police state, all these resources are being funneled into these federal agencies and their private subcontractors to do this kind of dirty work. And these really are grubby tools, because what you're really talking about is soft torture of mostly innocent civilians. But yeah, and also we're just approaching the break, Doc, and this is really good. This has been a very interesting start, and if this is anyone's first time listening to Dr. Erik Karlstrom, you're probably going to be taking notes furiously out there. Well, keep going, because we are going to go further down the rabbit hole as this show progresses. You know, I said in the promo that we were going to get the doc to give us his take on 5G, and it's not a separate subject, because we've just laid the groundwork of what could have been the beta test. Now, to find out what I mean about that, you're going to have to stay tuned, but 5G plays heavily into everything we have covered in the past, and it's going to take things to the next level again, and you're going to hear it here first from Dr. Erik Karlstrom, right here on the Kev Baker Show on Truth Frequency Radio. www.tfrlive.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kev Baker, and today our special guest right here on the Kev Baker Show is Dr. Erik Karlstrom. Now, you can find his most relevant website to the subject matter today over at gangstalking, mindcontrolcults.com. Pardon my slip of the tongue there. And before we get going, let me remind you out there, getthetea.com happily, proudly sponsor the Kev Baker Show. And for this month only, we're offering a special deal for anyone who goes over to Get the Tea at getthetea.com. Because when you make your order at the checkout, use coupon code KBS. And I urge you all to do so. You'll be helping me out, you'll be helping Get the Tea out, and you'll be helping yourself out. But you can get free shipping within the US with coupon code KBS. So please head on over there to getthetea.com. So then, with that out of the way, Doc, let's kind of go off on a tangent for a moment, but not really, because I think this all ties together in the end of the day. Just before we came to the show, I started getting alerts coming through on my phone telling me of breaking news in America, and that is that Trump is set to sign a deal to temporarily avoid another government shutdown. But at the same time, he is also set to announce a national emergency. Now, national emergencies are something that have ramifications and things that come along with them. But I'm not American, so I'm not the best person to be speaking about this. What's your opinion on what's going on right now in America, Doc?
Well, Kev, I appreciate you informing me about that, because I didn't know that. I don't watch much TV, but yeah, with all the executive orders, that have been passed, more or less unconstitutionally over the past 20 years, especially under Obama and Bush too, the president can declare martial law if he declares a national emergency. And of course, martial law means stay in your house, and if you come out when we don't want you to come out, we'll shoot you, So this could be potentially very serious. I don't know what they have in mind, but, if you go back and look, and we've talked about this in our previous shows, at Operation Rex, readiness exercise starting in 1984, during the Iran-Contra scandal time period under Reagan and Bush 1. This is when they started to build the FEMA camps. And FEMA was originally Federal Emergency Military Authority. And all of this, the FEMA camps then were the kind of the fallback position if there was, major protest and civil war. So the U.S. government has been planning for civil war for, decades now. And of course, the UX, Unconventional War Exercise of 2016 and the Jade Helm of 2015 were drills that involved 8 states which were planning for civil war. And they had the red states versus the blue states, and they had their crisis actors, and they wanted total control of the human domain. Well, this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about, this insane goal to mind control people, to be able to control people. Going back to the MK Ultra mandate of 1953, a psycho-civilized society. And anybody who's not psycho-civilized, well, we got a place for you, in the FEMA camps or whatever, So, I'm sure that the listeners are thinking, my God, is this even plausible what you're saying? Yeah, all of this is true. It's not going to be, featured so much on the mainstream media. And you programs like yours, probably about the only place you can hear these things actually discussed. But it's in the literature. It's in lots and lots of sources. So none of this is being made up. We're not making any of this up. It's all out there. And I'm frankly quite concerned that the situation right now in America is very it's kind of almost it's in a dangerous situation. I hope that it plays out. But when Trump declared, that he was going to close the government down right around Christmas, there was no reason for that, because they had already come to a deal in the Congress, and he obviously wanted to close the government down for his own reasons. It had nothing to do with the wall, of course. This is what you call a cover story, and then the real story is behind that. And that's what I've had to learn as a professor and as a researcher. We're dealing with a world controlled by intelligence agencies, and the intelligence agencies always use their cover stories. They use their covert ops. And once you get into reading about how this works, you see that they've controlled pretty much the United States and the world since World War II. This is all told in the book, The Secret Team, the CIA and its allies in control of the United States and the world, by L. Fletcher Prouty, 1973. He was a liaison officer between the military and the CIA between 1955 and 1963, and which, of course, includes the period of Kennedy assassination in the Bay of Pigs, a very, very critical time. But this was the time when the CIA was creating, really expanding the American empire with all these counterinsurgency operations in, 40 or 50 countries, both friends and enemies. But yeah, I mean, the world is that the world view that we get from watching TV is nothing like the real world. So, the quicker we wake up and realize that our government has been stolen from us by these elite forces, we're going to have to weigh in as citizens. We're going to have to be informed, and we're going to have to act in a sensible way to reclaim our countries. Which have been stolen by these cabals, as I point out. So I'm worried about America right now. We'll see how it plays out. Going back to this document, and then we'll get into the 5G, and I wanted to kind of set the stage for 5G. Okay, so counterterrorism is what the intelligence agencies do. It's also called counterinsurgency, counterintelligence. It's an integral part of this national security enterprise and the global war on terrorism, which ramped up after 9/11, and it's all part of the revolution in military affairs and the Pentagon's fourth generation warfare that uses Tesla technology, directed energy weapons, weaponizing the electromagnetic spectrum. All frequency as and wavelengths have been weaponized. And this needs to be tested. These weapons, these neural weapons now, according to Dr. James Giordano, the mind is the next battle space. So we have to test these neural weapons and these neurotech things on targets. We have to acquire viable targets. Are you still with me, Kev?
I certainly am, Doc. Yes.
Okay. So most of these targets, quote unquote, are humans like me. And, there might be brothers, fathers, sisters, mothers of four, with life experiences. But now, of course, we're just, it. And you can imagine the little crosshairs on the back of Will Smith in the movie Enemy of the State, or the crosshairs on the back of the head of Jason Bourne, in those great movies. So most targets are innocent civilians who have been designated as enemies in order to, again, help justify this multi-trillion-dollar national security, counterterrorism, corporate military, intelligence, police state complex, which drives the American economy and the global terrorism economy. The global terrorism economy intersects, and this includes the profits from arms and drugs and human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking. Now you're getting into the mafia aspect of this, which is intertwined at the highest levels. So we're dealing with, again, the international Zionist criminal syndicate, which controls the nations, certainly the United States. Since again, I've mentioned 9/11, $9 trillion in federal funds transferred from social programs to this national security police state establishment, and over $6 trillion in federal funds squandered on these prosecuting these foreign wars of aggression that, under the pretext of the global war on terrorism, that really benefit Greater Israel and the corporate military complex only. Everybody else is a loser. Most, or at least many, targeted citizens, TIs, are unaware they're being targeted, tracked, and monitored by satellite and supercomputers and on-the-ground government and private security spies and community-based agents, informants, etc. They are unaware that they're.
I think a lot. Yeah, I think a lot of this has moved to the satellite-based kind of weaponry that they have now, Doc. I really, really do.
Yeah, no place to hide, and of course under 5G, they're talking about putting 20,000 more satellites into the space. This is Elon Musk, he wants to put 5,000 5G satellites into space by June of this year. Well, this is a global takeover program as far as I'm concerned. And I think we, the citizens, have to say, no, I'm sorry, we don't buy into this. And we have to figure out ways to stop it, And that's, I think, hopefully we'll have a little time at the end to how can we defend ourselves? What can we do, But what we're talking about now is the way the state is misusing and abusing its own citizens, I think, in ways that help them determine what they need to make this 5G kill grid, 5G surveillance grid weapon system, and how to make it most effective. So I think that we targeted citizens may well be the beta test for the 5G system. Certainly, we'll get into the frequencies. These are weaponized frequencies that they would have tested. Back in the MK Ultra days, and in the Soviet Union at the same time. We talked about the psychotronic system over there, which very much mirrored what was going on in the United States at the same time. So we, kind of looking across the crooked mirror, looking into the crooked mirror, we see really the same developments in the United States and Russia. So TCs, we targeted citizens, are most of us unaware that our day-to-day activities are surveilled, manipulated, disrupted, and controlled to a large extent by these shadowy military special forces operatives and other government and private security agents, vigilantes, paid street thugs, and other useful idiots and useful idiot groups. Most TCs are unaware that hordes of mind and behavioral scientists at hundreds to maybe thousands of universities and medical facilities are essential participants in these operations, in these experiments. And again, Dr. James Giordano, who's a quote-unquote neuroscientist, says he's a neuroethicist, spelled out the rationale for these treason activities at a 2017 lecture at Lawrence Livermore Labs in California. He said, we, being the Pentagon, big science, national security establishment, need viable targets to test our latest neuroweapons and neurotechnology. He also noted, and I've got a whole post about that and got his lecture on the website. Giordano noted that, quote, mortality and morbidity in these programs is real. In other words, people are dying in these terminal experiments, just like they have been since the CIA started the MK Ultra program in 1953. So the result for the TC is that their life, freedom, sovereignty are disrupted, controlled, and effectively stolen through these operations. We've talked about the electronic concentration camp. Now there's a kind of an invisible cage around the TI, which is actually comprised of these electronic weapons, which of course you can't see, but also you're in a world of lies and spies and surveillance role players and spotters and trackers.
Doc, I seen a video recently just along those lines, and it was somebody in a supermarket, obviously a targeted individual, and he had a team on him, and there was one male that he went and challenged. And the guy was as brazen as hell. He quite upfront about the fact that he's paid to do this. He's just paid to follow him. That's what he gets paid to do. And this is I was quite surprised that here it is on video now, and yet there are still so many people. I would think actually the majority of people still don't think that this is a thing. This is a thing, and it really, really, I just have to shake my head.
Yeah, it's just ignorance. This is really what brought down the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, East Germany. This citizen spy thing where pitting groups of citizens against other citizens. You really have organized a civil war, and this is what our leaders have done now. And yeah, these vigilante thugs that are on the street, these perpetrators that are doing these setups, street theater things against the TIs, they're getting paid, and most of them know that what they're doing is wrong. I personally think that spiritually they're in great danger, because what they're doing is so evil. What they're doing to others is so evil that I don't see how they can, as Jesus said to the Jews, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Yeah, I feel that very strongly about these perpetrators. I think they've jeopardized their eternal souls because this program is so evil. But yeah, the information is out there. There has to be, just active denial on the part of the population to deny these things. But once you're into this, invisible cage, this electronic concentration camp, your life is basically stolen, because they put you in this virtual reality where you're not having real encounters with others. What you're having is orchestrated encounters. So those people will have a script. The people that swarmed around the TI in the grocery store that you're talking about on the YouTube, they're on a script. And so when somebody who's a TI goes and confronts one of those guys, all of a sudden they're all messed up. I've done this enough to know this, because they're following a script. So most of them really can't adapt to the TI responding to them in a real way. They're kind of counting on the TI just kind of curling up into a little ball and being psychologically shattered. And the whole point is to psychologically destroy the TI. And we've got weaponized psychology and weaponized psychologists, that are actually inventing these street theater campaigns in order to psychologically destroy the TI. So this is what states do covertly, secretly, instead of, just shooting them, enemies of the state like they used to, or doing hard torture like sending them off to the gulag. Now they use this deniable process. There's a very good book recently that I've just finished, Kev, by a British journalist for The Guardian, an English guy named Luke Harding, and it's called Mafia State. He was gang stalked fiercely in Russia when he criticized the government. And the book is called How One Reporter Became an Enemy of the Brutal New Russia Mafia State. And he concludes, of course, that Russia is a mafia state. Well, I would conclude the United States is a mafia state. And both of these, countries use this system then to police the streets. They're both fascist or communist totalitarian systems. So now you get certain citizens to attack and undermine other citizens in this covert program that we call gang stalking, or I call it Gestapo 666. But yeah, this has been going on for, decades, many decades. I think much of this comes from the CIA's MK Ultra programs. In other words, how to psychologically destroy people using psychology, sociology, anthropology, etc.
I look at it as being the modern day technologically advanced version and the remote version of MK Ultra back in the day.
Yeah, well, of course, MK Ultra was 149 sub-projects that we found out about just by, a Freedom of Information Act filed by John Marks, State Department guy, back in 1977. CIA Director Richard Helms instructed that all of the MK Ultra documents be destroyed. Well, as it happened, there were like 10 boxes that were Xeroxed, and they were in some, accounting office. And they released those, even though they were heavily redacted. They got a State Department team to get on those 10 boxes, 16,000 pages or something, and figure out what each of those 149 sub-projects was about. And they did that. Now, then after MK Ultra officially ended, it didn't really end at all. It went into the Office of Research and Development. And then when John Marks did another FOIA request for 130 boxes of documents, the CIA said, no way, we're not going to share that with you. And so it's been dark ever since, So we have a small slice of what's happened based on those 10 boxes of documents, which were Xeroxed and redacted. So what we know about what the government has done secretly in these top secret mind control experiments is actually a pretty small piece of the puzzle.
And Doc, it doesn't even make sense that they would have stopped after the programs that we went on to learn about in MK Ultra. We know how governments work. We know how the psychiatric world works, psychology. That this would have rolled on just under different names, different departments, and just kept moving forward with the technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because this, as Dr. Ronnie Kilda says, is the main policy of the United States.
Well, there's a place where I need to pause you, because this is where tonight's show, myself and the doc, we agreed beforehand, because the doc, he'll say a word or two in a moment, but we're really dedicating our show tonight to Dr. Ronnie Kilda, aren't we, Doc?
Yeah, Dr. Ronnie Kilda was the chief medical officer in northern Finland, and she knew 6 languages. She died in 2015. I think she was tortured with this program. I think she had heart problems, died in a hospital, but I think she was murdered by this program. She was a TI, or targeted individual, for almost 40 years, but she was also a consummate political insider who would go to all these military mind control conferences. Her husband was the Norway's ambassador to the UN, so she was an insider, brilliant lady. And she really figured out what's going on. And posthumously, there's a book that was published with her name on it. It's called Bright Light on Black Shadows, which I think everybody should get who's a TI if they want to understand this program. So one of the things that I do when I'm on these interviews, I share her insights, because again, I think she might well still be the most knowledgeable person who's not, on the aggressive side of this program, who's on the receiving end of this program in terms of understanding it. So, yeah, I think, she died on the 8th of February, 2015. Here we are 6 days later. We can still dedicate this show to her and her insights because, a great lady. When they picked on her, she pushed back real hard. And she did a lot of YouTube interviews to try to educate people about what's going on. So a great lady, Dr. Ronnie Kilda. So anyway, we got a little more time. I'll finish this paragraph. So the TI is now in this virtual false world, this unreal world. This is what intelligence agencies do. They push you into an unreal world. And so this new world you're in, the defamation campaigns, they try to, tell all your neighbors, that you're a prostitute or a pedophile or whatever. There's psychological operations. You are a covert operation, covert because it's all illegal. Your friends and family are going to betray you probably because of the rumor campaigns. You're getting electronic assaults and manipulations. You're getting these scripted street theater acts by strangers on the street, all again to psychologically break down the TC, the targeted citizen. And again, many of us are going to be disposable subjects, as in the MK Ultra style terminal experiments that involve torture and or mind mapping and mind cloning from these electromagnetic and neuro weapons. So again, these techniques have been used, similar techniques in Russia with the Cheka and the KGB, now still used, according to Luke Harding, by the FSB, the Federal Security Services, by the East German Stasi, by the CIA, by MI6, I'm sure, by NATO's Operation Gladio, by FBI's COINTELPRO, CIA's MHKS. So not to know about these things is fine, but that doesn't mean they didn't happen. Most Americans wouldn't know about these things, but they are in fact part of our history, and we need to know about that history. Also, we've seen the same technologies, these microwave weapons used against the American and Canadian diplomats in Cuba, which made them sick and they all went home. And again, Luke Harding had the same protocols directed at him very brutally in Russia because he dared to criticize the Russian government. So I'll just wind it up here and then we'll get into Ronnie Kilda's observations. A 2003 Boston Globe article stated that the Department of Homeland Security, which of course was formed right after 9/11, the plan is to recruit 100 million citizen spies to fight this phony war on terrorism. So is it any wonder that there's less unemployment in America than there's been since 1969, 3.9%? Well, in 69, the FBI's COINTELPRO and the CIA's MHKS in Phoenix political spying and sabotage murder programs were going full speed. Likewise, CIA's MK Ultra. And is it any wonder that America is falling apart? I would say that these elites are orchestrating a civil war in America, just much like Jade Helm and UX16. So that's I've just kind of given you what's on the recently revised homepage of my gang stalking mindcontrolcults.com website. This is my kind of summary of what I've learned by studying this thing intensely and experiencing it. Learning from reading, learning from all sources, and also experiencing it on the ground. Would you like to jump in there before I get into it?
Absolutely, because we're just coming up hard on the break. So after the break, we're going to come back for hour number 2. We're going to hear about Dr. Ronnie Kilda, and then we are going to factor in the 5G. I can't wait to hear all about this, and I know all of you out there are sitting patiently as well. Well, we've got 3 short moments, and then we'll be back with Dr. Erik Karlstrom. And please, please, please head on over, check out his new website over at www.gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com. That's www.gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com. And before we go to the break, let me just give my good friend Joe Joseph a shout out as well. He's going to be talking, I think, about the Pentagon's new AI plan that came out today. Yes, I seen him posting it on Facebook. I shared that on Facebook as well. They have come out with 17 pages, I believe it is, on their plans, or at least their public plans, on how to incorporate AI into the military. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kev Baker, and this is today's Kev Baker Show, right here on Truth Frequency Radio Network, www.tfrlive.com. I'm live with the very noisy Dr. Erik Karlstrom. Doc, is there it sounds like there's a hurricane blowing through your house right now.
I just got a cup of coffee too, Kev, and I used the microwave oven, so that also was.
I thought it was a Stargate that was opening in your living room there, man. It sounded like we're getting it from the other dimension now. We're going to really speed things up here because we're going to talk briefly about Dr. Ronnie Kilda, because she really is somebody that we're both paying tribute to tonight. And her information lays a bit of the groundwork for what we're going to get into then. Now, I'm looking at the chat room. They're all really, really anticipating the 5G stuff. I know people out there on social media, they want us to get there as well, Doc. So let's drop down a couple of gears and let's get into it.
Okay, well, let's get into it. First, I want to say it is Valentine's Day, so we can make this a kind of a Valentine to Dr. Ronnie Kilda. And, Valentine's Day is about love, and we want a world where there's love and there's truth and there's beauty, and what's coming down the pike does not look very beautiful and doesn't look like there's much love behind it. So we have to step up, and here's what Dr. Ronnie Kilda tells us in her book, Bright Light on Black Shadows. She said the elite has plans to get rid of 2/3 of the world's population with electromagnetic warfare, chemical warfare, and psychological warfare. Okay, all of those are being used in the gang stalking program. And of course, this goes to Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st Century coming out of the United Nations. She says mind control is listed as a non-lethal weapon by the military, and this technology links the brains of people via implanted microchips to satellites as controlled by ground-based supercomputers. Okay, this is a whole network of connectivity that most are not aware of. She says all U.S. military branches are involved in developing this technology in cooperation with civil institutions like the Department of Health and what is known as the Neural Network Association. That sounds like Elon Musk's Neuralink. At their 1991 conference, they submitted and endorsed over 1,000 projects in brain-computer, now we're getting into transhumanism, brain-computer technology at 350 medical centers, universities. You see where this is going. She says cybernetics is the full neurological control and communication and has been used since the 1940s without the knowledge of the public. The objectives are behavior modification and influencing mental and bodily functions, processes, and emotions remotely through computer satellite links. You see 5G will give this capability. Directed energy weapons, mostly EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, and acoustic weapons act on the psyche and the body of humans and all living creatures. They've been called by many names: psychophysical weapons, weapons of information warfare, psychotronic weapons, cognitive weapons, neurological weapons, mind-invasive weapons, mind-controlled and electro-harassment weapons, remote neural monitoring, active denial systems, that's 95 gigahertz, by the way, weapons of electronic warfare, means of neuro-linguistic programs, means for behavior modification, means of influence technology, computerized brainwashing machines, devices to zombify people, means to induce mental and physical illness, means for hostile surveillance, people zappers, and weapons of mass destruction. In 1994, the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, proposed that non-lethal weapons be used against anyone engaged in any activities that DoD opposed. That could explain why I got on the list. Maybe I wrote an article that was critical of the Gulf War. By the way, I did. That could include almost anybody. The Secret Services and their sabotage and terror departments are the biggest terrorists, she says, in the world, and they work together with the mafia. That's true. This has been the case since World War II. And she says most crimes against humanity, more crimes have been against humanity have been committed under the shield of national security than people can ever know, possibly even more than the mafia. And then she says something that's very germane. Mass remote mind control of the population is achieved via, drum roll please, the mobile phone network. Okay, so let's go to 5G. It's being rolled out. I understand it's in your town. Is that correct, Kev?
Yeah, I actually just put that in the chat room. Unbeknown to you, Doc, there was talk about the 5G in there, obviously, and Glasgow at the end of last year. On top of us being lucky enough to be the first smart city in the UK, along with that, inevitably, comes 5G. So we had Vodafone and a number of other networks trying out the 5G. And you know what happens when they try it, Doc? They tend not to switch that off. So we are seeing the infrastructure going up around Glasgow all the time. And 5G is here, and I'm pleased so far to say that nobody has been cooking like a chicken yet. But I was just kind of tongue-in-cheek saying the other day, Glasgow is really unique, Doc. It's a place like no other. And most of the time, even before 5G, we were characters anyway. We're a bit off our head. So really, it's hard to tell if it's having any mental effects on us because we were a bit mad before this.
Well, you know, my own observation is that the power elite will go after the area or the state or the city that they think might give them the most trouble. So, you know, they'll target Texas. You know, Texas famous for all their independent, independent cusses down there. And so, you know, they'll target Texas and Jade Helm, you know. And so I think they're probably targeting Glasgow for the same reason. You know, you've got a bunch of, very, very strong-minded people there. And if they can take you down, well, okay, so let's look at what 5G is. Fifth generation wireless communication. It's in the gigahertz or millimeter wave range of the spectrum, very, very high frequencies. Now we're talking, say, 5 gigahertz to maybe 100 gigahertz. And a hertz is a cycle per second of electromagnetic wave. A cycle per second is one wave goes by a point every second. And the human brain works in very extremely low frequencies, like 2 to 15 or 20 hertz. And then when you get into the kilohertz, you're talking thousands. The frequency is 1,000 hertz going, or 1,000 of these waves going by in a second, and then you get into the megahertz, 1,000,000, and then the gigahertz, a billion, and then a tera is a trillion. And from what I understand now, we're bathed in a soup of these electromagnetic wavelengths and frequencies that maybe our grandparents weren't. I mean, the background then was natural. Now we're flooded with all these other frequencies that we are producing for our own purposes.
Doc, we are electromagnetic beings in the end of the day, and for 99.9% of the time that the human race has been on this planet, and we can argue till the cows come home about how long that's been, But they haven't been, or our bodies haven't been subjected to anything like this. And our bodies are not designed to function within an environment that is absolutely, it's like we're in an ocean, an invisible ocean of these energies, Doc, and they're the most harmful energies and frequencies imaginable.
Yeah, and I've heard credible sources say that the amount of electromagnetic frequencies in our kind of atmospheric soup now is 1 trillion times greater than, say, our grandparents, or I've even heard up to 1 quintillionth. So in other words, we are doing a gigantic experiment on the human race. There has been very, very inadequate testing, but a lot of experts, and now I'm going to refer to some YouTubes that I put on my website by Joe Imbriano in California, and by Barry Trower, who's a microwave expert in England, and Mark Steele, who is a microwave expert in England, and also Deborah Tavares. I've got a post called "Dangers of 5G." YouTubes featuring Joe Imbriano, Mark Steele, Barry Trower, and Deborah Tavares, where I've taken the notes on what these experts say. And basically, they're saying this is a weapon system, it's a surveillance system, it has a lot of very, very negative health effects. But according to Barry Trower, the people that are rolling this out are above the law, and we can't stop it because they're more powerful than we are. Now, Joe Imbriano's, they talk about the health effects as being, sterilization or, radical reduction in infertility, much greater difficulty to breathe because this actually affects the oxygen molecules and the ability of, it breaks the oxygen bonds, the covalent bonds between the O2 and creates O3, which then becomes toxic in the body. And it makes it difficult for, the kind of the miracle of breathing to happen because, oxygen is of course transported through the bloodstream, to the brain, et cetera. And then the bloodstream, in the lungs, this is exhaled the waste products, the carbon dioxide, et cetera, the water vapor. And this process is affected. So we have, according to Joe Imbriano, this is taking an axe to the trunk of the tree of life, because we have to have oxygen. And what's happening now with this technology is it's going to affect. Well, here's what he says. Make sure I gotta get it right. He says 60 gigahertz frequencies has been chosen for a specific reason. He believes this is a weapon. It is a frequency of oxygen molecule absorption. It's the oxygen molecule frequency. That is the frequency that the oxygen molecule absorbs the energy. Why is this significant? And he says it's so demonic and so evil. The oxygen molecules have electrons, and they share with each other. Oxygen is a diatomic molecule. What we breathe is two oxygen molecules stuck together with electrons. When oxygen is hit with radio frequency energy at 60 gigahertz, it affects the orbital properties of those shared electrons. And it is those shared electrons that bind to the hemoglobin on our blood. Hemoglobin is the magnetic compound in our bodies and our blood cells. Hemoglobin is a very complex ferromagnetic compound. When you alter or interfere with the orbital spin properties of diatomic oxygen's electrons, you interfere with the miraculous gaseous exchange in our lungs, where oxygen is absorbed into the bloodstream, and at the same time, carbon dioxide and water vapor is being expelled from the bloodstream into our lungs and breathed out. It's a miraculous function we don't think about. It's just happening while we're alive. But this system then can be disrupted by these frequencies, 60 gigahertz, according to him. And Mark Steele says the same thing. Barry Trower has the same concern. They call it oxidative stress. But this is just one of many, many potential health hazards. Barry Trower says that statistically in 3 generations from the exposure to this electromagnetic soup, only 1 in 8 of us humans is going to be fertile. So it is a way then to potentially genocide the entire species, if you have, or at least those that are in the areas in which this is being rolled out. Deborah Tavares is very much an alarmist on these things, and she's, in fact, she just interviewed Barry Trower a couple of days ago, and that YouTube is up. Now, Joe Ambriano has been studying this for a long, long time. Been trying to get people to take down these cell towers, stop using Wi-Fi, get Wi-Fi out of the schools, hardwire your devices into your house. Don't use Wi-Fi, because that's, of course, microwave, and that also is carcinogenic. And so this is going to induce a lot of illness. It's going to rob us of vitamin D. It's going to millimeter waves, especially as in the 5G, destroy the body's ability to produce vitamin D. And
you see, Doc, that's quite worrying from somebody in Scotland. And here's why. Because already in Scotland, we suffer from vitamin D deficiency, because we don't get the hours of sunshine that all of you lucky people over in Mexico and places in warmer climes get. So there's already a problem with vitamin D production. And now we're hearing about how Glaswegians here under 5G are also now living in a system which impacts vitamin D production. That cannot be good long-term health effects on the population.
Absolutely, and again, this is a top-down imposition of a series of frequencies. We don't have to have Wi-Fi, or we don't have to have Wi-Fi. We certainly don't have to have 5G just so we can download a movie on our cell phone in 30 seconds or whatever. This is being sold to us as something that's going to make our lives so much better. It's going to increase the connectivity of all things. It's going to be used with the Internet of Things. It's going to be used with the Internet and
that's the thing, Doc. It's not for us, and they'll sell it to us for our convenience, and absolutely they'll be telling us how we can watch things far faster on our way to work, on public transport, la-di-da. But in reality, this is the network and the system for the machines, because it is really more designed for gathering in all of the data that the Internet of Things and the gadgets that are being unleashed on us now are producing and sending back to that central server where they do X, Y, and Z of it. It's about the tracking of us as well, I would imagine, Doc. And this is why we kind of both agree here that really we could be looking at the global system for what we've seen happening to individuals in the past. This could be the ultimate system of control.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about. It's the ultimate surveillance system with these frequencies. It also, the individuals in the home can be targeted with specific frequencies if they are deemed, not useful by the leaders of, UN Agenda 21 or whatever, In other words, they can be taken out. Their emotions can be manipulated with different frequencies. They can be slow killed with different frequencies, as the TIs are now. And that's why I suspect, or at least speculate, that TIs are kind of a beta test for this system. In other words, you listen to the testimony of different targeted individuals, and many of them are being tortured unimaginably with these frequencies.
And here's where I come in on that, Doc, because I think maybe, and of course it's early days yet, right? But I'm living here in Glasgow, so can only go by my personal experience, and there's been no reports of mass people reporting that they've been feeling that burning sensation. But that's not me saying that there isn't the potential for that to be done. And I don't think it's going to be a case, and you can give your opinion on this after me, but we're going to see more and more of these smart cities with 5G. That's inevitable. As much as I would like to see it going away, it's rolling out right now. And I just want people, I don't want to scare people into thinking the minute this gets switched on, literally we're all going to sit feeling like we're cooking. Obviously, they are now able to target absolutely anyone if what we're saying here is right. But I just don't want people thinking that all of a sudden they're going to feel like that chicken in the microwave, Doc. What do you think?
Well, let me read you this comment. I watched a whole series of YouTubes about this subject, and then I looked at the comments that other people had made after they watched the YouTube. And here's one from Sweden. He says, 5G has already been deployed in Sweden. We've had it for a few years now. There was a tower close to my apartment building. I remember when they put it up, and I asked them what it was. They told me it was a 5G tower. Immediately after they put it up, I started having headaches, pain in my abdomen and joints, insomnia, skin rashes, neurological symptoms, and other health issues. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me despite taking numerous blood tests, MRI, neurological tests, and a bunch of other tests. I had these issues for a couple of years until I moved to another apartment across town where there isn't a tower near me. My symptoms disappeared within a week and I could finally sleep at night. I'm certain my symptoms were caused by the powerful microwave radiation from the 5G towers. Okay, that's a personal anecdote. That's not, scientifically valid. But, you put, and I guess Austria now is undergoing beta tests of this. And I'm hearing similar reports. There's a woman named Claire Edwards who worked with the UN, and she's got an article out that I've posted about it's a global weapon system. One of the reasons I wanted to go through the material I went through, about MK Ultra and whatnot, is that it would appear that our governments have been captured, certainly the U.S. government, by an elite which does not have our best interests at heart, that wants to enslave us, that wants to control us, and that electromagnetic frequencies have specifically been tested and used, and they're called non-lethal weapons, they're called directed energy weapons. This is what the revolution in military affairs is about, of the U.S. government. This is what fourth generation warfare is. It's the use of Tesla technology, the frequencies and wavelengths, against individuals, against targeted groups. Now with the 5G in combination with the 4G, 3G, and 2G, which is going to be a combined system, now it gives whoever's in control of these technologies the power, then enormous power.
Well, let me throw this one. Let me throw this one at you as well, Doc, listening to you speak here, We're talking about all the different aspects of the 5G, and something along the way that I've found out, or come to find out, is that this is the exact kind of equipment that we need now to be moving into this augmented reality. Literally holograms appearing in the street. You can imagine it like Minority Report, really individual tailored advertising, stuff like that. But think of this, Doc. If you are a targeted individual, think of the capabilities a system like that would have. Just little things appearing out of the corner of your eye, stuff like that. That's the kind of thing that 5G opens up. And of course, it could be anyone in the population that is targeted then.
Wow. Well, you're right on, Kev. I mean, they have the technology, and as a TI, I know they have the technology to put voices in your head and images in the corner of your eye, as you say. This goes back to the 60s, but now, of course, they're rolling these things out, and again, I think we have to look at this as an integrated system. We have the 5G cellular in concert with the artificial intelligence, the big data, the data analytics, and the Internet of Things. And they want this massive connectivity where, billions of microchips are going to be connected with this broadband 5G. Well, I don't know how that's going to benefit you and me, but we're going to have self-driving cars, they say, and everything's talking to everything else. Well, this then is the hive mind,
yes,
which can easily then be controlled. Well, who controls the hive mind?
And of course,
where do these technologies come from? Well, we find out that they're coming from Israel. Israel developed these technologies and is at the forefront of these technologies.
Funny you should say that.
Fairly small. Yeah.
Yeah, funny you should say that, because I have to pause you there, because this is highly relevant. And Glasgow, our surveillance system, state of the art, cost over 20 million of the money we won in that competition to fund the whole thing. It goes to nice security, and where are nice security from? Tel Aviv. So all of our information, Doc, and for this system to work properly and at its optimum, at its very highest capabilities, it needs to be looking at all of that data that has been gathered up by all of the sensors around the city, and as well as all of the surveillance cameras and everything else. So you can see how, just to back up what you're saying here, the money is going to an Israeli firm.
Yeah, and ironically that, Israel's got laws saying that, we're not going to have 5G here. So they know how dangerous it is, but of course they aim to profit from the widespread distribution of this thing, and they aim to control it. Now, in 1979, two Jewish professors, of course, in Israel, formed Operation Talpiot, which is a top secret Israeli project which combines military and corporate aspects to enable Israel to dominate artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and 5G, and the cyber warfare. You see, this all figures into cyber warfare as well, because now we're talking about control of cyberspace. And I believe, and this is my own speculation, again, based on my research, and this is why I mentioned what I mentioned earlier about tikkun olam, reinvention of the world, which is the Hebrew term. There's a 3,000-year plan. The Jews want to take over the world. They want to dominate it, and they want the whole world. They want to break down the nation states, the family, all religions, etc. And I believe it is the Antichrist satanic system. So all reason in the world to resist this. Say, hey, no, I'm sorry, you're not gonna come in here with those little shoebox size 5G towers every 500 feet in our neighborhood.
Come on, Doc, everyone knows I'm the first guy on the list to get Elon's neural lace. I'm already signed up. I'll be there. I'll be the guinea pig for the show, right? I'm only joking.
Well, of course. I mean, you're like, it's like a nail that's sticking up. Somebody's, somebody in power, is going to want to, oh, this guy's a little dangerous to our objectives. And just like myself, I think that, I got on this list somehow, probably from writing some articles, because I think the truth is important, because I think Americans own the United States government and need the truth in order to, properly run the ship of state. That, of course, is a somewhat antiquated idea, but it is stated in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So I think Americans are going to have to wake up and come out of this zombie-like trance that our devices have put us in, and that they're pulling us further and further into. So I agree totally with Joe Imbriano, and if you want to watch his videos, he's been looking at this for a long time, that we need to resist. Don't have Wi-Fi in our homes. Minimize the number of devices in our homes, and don't go along for your own well-being.
We'll be back after the break. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
And for the last time this week, I am Kev Baker. Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned in to the Kev Baker Show right here on your #1 network. And I really do mean that. That is your #1 network, because without all of you out there, I mean each and every one of you, you are the absolute lifeblood of the network. So thank you all. And don't go anywhere after the break, because the maniac himself, you know the one, Joe Joseph, he is on the way with the Freedom Link. Isn't it great even that we can say that again, because Joe had that brief hiatus, but he's back with us now, right when we need him. And according to Joe, we're right in amidst the apocalypse. Ooga booga. So with all of that said, let me go back to my good friend, Dr. Eric Karlstrom. Doc, this has been great. It's been like, isn't it symbolic that we got back together and kind of resumed our partnership on Valentine's Day? People will start talking, man.
Yeah, well, it just kind of worked out that way. But, I think, the Catholic Church is getting a beating these days. But, the three transcendentals of the Catholic Church are truth, beauty, and love. And the reason that they're called transcendentals, I think, in the Catholic dogma is, we have our earthly variety of those, and that's supposed to be kind of an indicator of what life is like in heaven, where truth and beauty and love are much bigger. And, I hope that what we're doing is trying to bring the truth out. And I've got one of my websites is erickarlstrom.com. I've always loved music. I hope my music is, beautiful to some. Certainly, I do it because I think it is. And then, of course, truth, beauty, and love, and of the three, love is the greatest, according to the Apostle Paul. So we need to keep our sights fixed on the good stuff. But meanwhile, we have to protect our ourselves and our friends and our family and our culture, etc., from what I consider to be a very, very dark and draconian plan, which was advanced, has been advanced over, last 3,000 years, and it's expressed in many places, as I said earlier. People can read about the plan. It's in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. It's a satanic plan, and it is a declaration of war and a plan. And now it would appear that this group, which of course Israel was founded by the Rothschild family, king of the Jews, which is certainly one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest family in the world. They have the means now to carry out this plan, which is total world domination, and it would be through the high-tech sector, the kind of the marriage, the interfacing of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, 5G, cyber surveillance, cyber warfare. There's a technology monopoly that has happened in Israel. And of course, the United States, I would say, is the United States of Israel. We've been controlled by Israel for a long time. And this is unfortunate because, of course, their goals are not the same as maybe what the average American goals would be. So we're now poised in a very, very dangerous situation. I look at the French Revolution and the Bolshevik Revolution. These were like practice runs for the final revolution, which I think is nigh upon us. And it's carried out by the Illuminati, by the Judeo-Masonic Satanists, as far as I'm concerned. But this gives I think this is how they can do it. This technocracy, this control of the Internet of Things and 5G and AI.
The time of the things that happen, I believe, are all cyclical, and there are big plans at play here. And the fact that we're living in this technological age, Doc, it stands to reason that this system of control is going to come at us in a very technological way, and we're seeing it really rolling out so fast around us right now. And I think I said to you anyway before the show, that this whole story about the Antichrist and stuff like this satanic thing that we're going into right now, I don't see a physical being. It might appear to be physical right enough, but I honestly do think it's going to be an algorithm, an AI, and of course, with the 5G and voice to skull and all the other things that they've got at their fingertips, it's going to be able to deliver individual messages to 7.5 billion people around the world in all the right different languages, all at the same time, and really feel as if it's speaking to you in your head. Now, if that doesn't come across as being almost godlike, Doc, I really don't know. And then you add to that as well, you've got the stories from ancient times, since you've been bringing that up, the stories of the golem, how they used the clay to make these figurines to basically be the vehicles for spirits. Well, again, you move forward in time, and it might be a different flavour, but everything repeats. And with 5G comes the potential and the fact that, I keep bringing this up, that Vancouver is about to become the city of the synth. And that's a really cool title. That's something I would usually make up, for a YouTube video. But that's from Geordie Rose himself, the man that owns the company called Sanctuary AI, with the synthetic robots that are about to be unleashed first in Vancouver. So I imagine that's going 5G as well. Well, these synths, Doc, they're the modern day version of a golem potentially, right? Because they're going to be soulless vehicles that are walking about, far more intelligent than us as well, but living amongst us. And this is the newest kind of thing we've been covering, not new really, maybe a month or so. It's Geordie Rose telling people at a conference in McMaster University, look left, look right. And right now that's two human beings, but very soon at least one of those individuals is going to be a synth. And they're rolling them out to live there in Vancouver.
Wow. Well, and of course, with the Internet of Things and 5G connectivity, all of these robots then can be connected.
And untethered, untethered as well, because they'll always be within the network.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good point about the golem. And of course, the golem is this kind of creature that the rabbis wanted to create. The rabbis wanting to kind of take over the role of God. They wanted to create this kind of Frankenstein's monsters in order to, defeat their enemies.
And of course, Doc, that's obviously my speculation, my opinion. I can't definitively prove that, but the scenario, the stage is set for just that to happen. And as you would probably agree, history. It's cyclical. And like I say, because we're in that technological age, we should expect the technological flavor.
Yeah, apparently Henry Kissinger, who is a high, Illuminati agentur, if you ask me, in America, German Jewish extraction, probably a quadruple agent, according to Christopher Story in his book, The New Underworld Order. He's written an article saying, talking about the human, the entire species evolving through this, backward Christian era into the Enlightenment about 500 years ago, and now into the technocratic era. And there's a lot of Christians who would, differ with that because they still have this old Christian worldview, and I would mostly would fall into that category. Although I've done, a career in science as well, but the idea that technocracy is now going to control and be our kind of guiding principle. Well, this is not good news for human beings. This is bad news for human beings. Really bad news for human beings. We're being replaced. And, I would say, you get into these, Terminator kind of scenarios like the movie, or Blade Runner, where a few humans are going to be fighting against the Borgs. Almost we're there now, Kev. What do you think?
Absolutely. No, it sounds like science fiction, and I often have to say this, maybe too often I have to say this, but it's a science fiction world that we're literally living in now when you start talking about these subjects, Doc. It truly is. And I was just taking a look there again at the company Sanctuary AI, and, we've been talking about the effects of 5G on the human body and the dangers of that. Well, the thing about these synthetic robots is that the 5G is exactly what they run off. That is what keeps them in control and contact with the AI that's running them. And that's the kind of hive mind, albeit for the synths. This is the world we're moving into. And we're only that piece of bioware, if you want to call it that, biohacking away from literally being in the Borg mind.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this earlier on one of our shows, Kev. Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati, in 1776. He was a Jewish born, then became Jesuit, then became a atheist Satanist. He put together the plan for world domination and control in 1776, and then the Illuminati took over the highest levels of Masonry, etc. Well, at first it was the secret society of the Illuminati was called the Perfectibilists. And then he wanted to change the name to the Order of Bees. Okay, so with bees and insects, you get the image of this hive mind, and especially bees. Now, who is the queen bee of the bees? Well, that's the queen bee. But who would be the mastermind of the hive mind in this technocratic era? I'm old-fashioned enough to think it's Satan. Now, you have a more technological explanation, but I do think that Satan is very real, and that one of the reasons that all these Borgs and these monsters and these robots are being created, and these mind-controlled slaves.
Here's my take on it, Doc, and I think you might like this. Here's my twist on it, okay? We know how God sent Jesus in his image. Well, I think the algorithm that I'm talking about is Satan sending something in its image. I think the knowledge that has been used to create the system that we're moving into, from the D-Wave to all the sensors on the street, might have felt like original thoughts in the people that were coming up with it. But again, I think it was coming from a dark place. So just like we've seen in the Bible and the story of God and Jesus in his image, I think the algorithm, the AI, this all-seeing, all-dancing, all-encompassing, miracle-working thing that will perform wonders in front of our eyes is just going to be Satan's image. What do you think of that one? I should write a book on that, eh?
Absolutely. Except, theologically, I would have a slightly different perspective, and that is that humans, all humans, yourself, myself included, are made in God's image according to this worldview, and not just Jesus. Jesus would be the Son of God. But yeah, I mean, what's happening is the replacement of humanity with this Borg, cyborg, transhumanist man-machine reality. And I would say definitely it is the supplantation or the replacement of God's crowning glory, which is humanity, with these very demonic beings that lack a soul. And so therefore to be resisted, strongly, I mean, I think we need to understand that the spiritual battle is being waged on a colossal level in our time. And we need to learn to defend ourselves, and we need to figure out who it is our enemy is. I mean, our enemy is certainly not Saddam Hussein or, Assad or whoever the enemy du jour is. It is the factors which have overthrown our own governments and taken control of these cybernetic systems.
Absolutely, and it'll work miracles. We see the advances in medicine thanks to AI, and I'm not criticizing the advances, but think of the nanotechnology that may already lie within us, from the chemtrails, the vaccines, everything else. And all it takes is that programmable nanotechnology to be initiated, to be switched on, activated, and potential miracles, cancers disappearing, eradicated overnight. This is the kind of thing that they've got the potential to do. And imagine the stage show that they would be able to do with the mainstream media and everyone else involved, Doc. There would be literal wonders in the sky because of the 5G technology all around us. It would be holograms, like something out of Project Blue Book. So everything's there. It might sound science fiction, and I know we're speculating, but it's a potential for it. It's not impossible. This could be happening.
Well, I do believe that the leaders, the people that really control things, are using the Bible as a roadmap, as a script. And I think they are working up to this Armageddon Revelation scenario, good versus evil, war, etc. And, it really becomes very difficult to understand if this is prophecy that's coming true because it was accurate prophecy, or whether this is self-fulfilling prophecy.
You see, that's a hard bit to work out, isn't it? Because we know they're using it as a timetable. So are they trying to tick the boxes on the road to that end game? Or is this literally, organically, the prophecies playing out? It's weird.
Very difficult to understand. I mean, you almost have to just kind of decide which makes more sense to you individually. But yeah, it's coming down, and I do think that the powers of evil, Satan's group, wants to build up his army. I think they're very concerned they're going to lose when Christ returns. That's my belief. And, so we have all these mind-controlled bots and mind-controlled slaves, from MK Ultra and whatnot. This would be Satan's attempt to beef up his army, to win the battle. That is the Christian perspective. Certainly I read these things from Christian authors, some anyway. It's hard to know exactly what's going on, but we do seem to be living in these kind of apocalyptic times now.
Oh, absolutely. I call them the most interesting of times, like the old Chinese proverb. But it seems like every week, every month, Doc, and I don't know if you're experiencing it there, right? But time definitely feels like it's speeding up, and I don't know if it's because of the amount of information coming our way, the 5G itself, everything else that's taking effect on us. But it feels like everything is getting faster and faster, as if we're approaching some crescendo, some event. Maybe I'm going mad. What do you think?
Well, I think that for me, I come out of, I was a physical geography professor. I was also a rock climber and a mountain climber and a kayaker and a boatman, and I love nature. And that's what got me into physical geography. So for me, nature is the antidote. I mean, I find the beautiful places and I go there, and it's not speeding up out there. What's speeding up, of course, is this this artificial virtual reality, which is kind of locking down around us. And anybody who's connected to any devices would probably feel that. So I would say one very good defense is to disconnect from all these electronic devices, for periods of time, in order to get back to nature, to get back to who you are as a spiritual being, as a human being. Yes, we have the metallic nanoparticles in our brains now, which can, I think, be used to mind control us even. Yes, we need to kind of detoxify as best we can, get this stuff out of our systems. But I think if we consider ourselves to be God's creation and consider God to be the great creator and realize that these other usurpers are trying to destroy his creation and supplant it, reinvent it, repair it, as they say with tikkun olam, I say it's a bad idea. I like what God did, you know. I think it's going to win. I hope so.
You have to hope so. We always have to look at the glass being half full, Doc. Absolutely. Now, when you were looking at your research today, the YouTube videos, and you've been cramming kind of the whole 5G topic, what kind of solutions or any kind of methods or techniques people can use to shield themselves? Did you come across anything like that?
Oh, yeah. You know, I put these videos on my website of Joe Imbriano, who does give some, he's got a background in biology and chemistry, been working on this for many years, and he does have some, advice for supplements that people can take. He would say, don't have these wireless devices in your home. You know, don't let them put up one of these 5G boxes outside your house. In other words, we have to kind of take our world back. It's like our world has been stolen from us by, you know, it's top-down decisions. So, yeah, he has supplements that one can take and ways that you can protect your home, you know, with RF frequency blocking paint and low E glass and just no wireless in there, just to make sure everything's hardwired. And, you know, particular chemicals that we can, you know, supplements that we can buy. So I would recommend, you know, going to this particular post, which is called Dangers of 5G, and that's the name of Joe Imbriano's website, actually, and listening to these experts, Joe Imbriano, Mark Steele, Barry Trower, Deborah Tavares. They all have been looking at this, and I think it's time for people to just stop going along with things. You know, the smart cities that the UN has, they want to take us, they want to herd us out of the country into these smart cities. They want to control all of our, and charge us for everything, you know, every, you know, time we flush the toilet, every time we, you know, consume a calorie, they want to control that. Well, I say, you know, F you, you know, you're not going to control that. This is a free country. It's a battle. We are in a war. Now, see, a TI like myself knows this is a war to the death. And you know, you're non-TIs, you don't know that, you know, but it is a war to the death. It's a war to the death of you and your family and your country, your future, your children's future. We're in a war to the death. And you better know who your enemy is. And that's what I've been trying to, you know, spell out here. Who is your enemy? You know, it's not Saddam Hussein, it's not Assad, it's not the, you know, whoever the Pentagon is fighting this week, you know. That's not your enemy. These technocracy giants coming, you know, Qualcomm, the corporation out of Israel that, you know, is rolling out the 5G, that's your enemy. The people who have infiltrated your city government and your county government and who have infiltrated and taken over your national governments, those people are your enemy. They are a fifth column group. They are an enemy fifth column Trojan horse that has come into your nation and taken it over. Now you don't own it anymore. Well, you can either sit back and say, okay, that's fine, you know, you won, or you can say, wait a minute, we outnumber them 1,000,000 to 1, or 1,000 to 1, or 10,000 or 100,000, whatever, and we're not going to buy into this. We're not going to go along with your program of enslavement. We do not want to be bio-robots.
That's the numbers. Those numbers you gave there, that's what shows me that A, the dumbing down process is in full effect. And, you know, mind control itself. There must be so many people literally under mind control that, say it's the low ball number, 10,000 for every one. It's hardly a fair fight. You know, that just proves that there is really a problem right now, you know. And it's only set to get worse with 5G, I think.
Absolutely. You know, I'd say head for the hills, get out of the smart cities. You know, the smart city. In fact, I have one TI who's been furiously sending me all kinds of documents. In 2016, she had a job with the state associated with the University of Illinois. All of a sudden, she became a target. She got on one of these lists, and she's been showing me all these contracts, you know, between the smart city, which is a smart state now. Illinois is the first smart state, and DARPA and the university and whatnot. And of course, then they need targets to test these technologies. And she happens to be one. And her daughters. I mean, their lives are being destroyed because of these business relationships, these public-private partnerships that have to do with the UN, smart cities, and smart states. We have to reject this. We have to say these are criminals. These people have no business telling us what our future is.
These are these guys. This is invisible prisons, Doc. The bars are microwaves. That's literally what these smart cities are designed to be. And we often hear about how they would like to force the populace into these mega cities. Well, they're going to be mega smart cities. And all of this we're talking about, the 5G, is an absolute cornerstone of the system.
Yeah, and so if you happen to be a critic of the government, or if you happen to be a free thinker, or if somebody just doesn't like you, they can take you out in a heartbeat, pun intended, with their control of the frequencies that go into your home. They can 3D map your home. They can identify where you are. They can know everything about you. They can profile you with all this big data. And then they can manipulate you. They can change your behavior. And this is they can turn you into a biorobot.
And it might sound Minority Report or Blade Runner, but because of all that data that they're taking off us every second of every day, that leads to the predictive capabilities of these simulations and literally pre-crime units. That's the kind of thing that we're seeing rolling out now. You see pre-crime being talked about a lot. That's because of all the data. And they just want more and more data so that it becomes more and more reliable and more predictive. Again, are we moving? Are we like literally living in Blade Runner, Doc? Because that's what it feels like to me.
That's what it feels like to me too, Kev. But yeah, this business of information warfare that the Pentagon's been doing for a long time and that the Soviets did, it has to do not only, with controlling the news and the propaganda, et cetera. They've actually got the ability to take memories from your brain and remove them and insert false memories into your brain. If they want to say, if they really don't like an individual, they can put in memories and they can say, well, now this person is going to commit a crime. Well, they've actually set the stage for that by manipulating your own brain activity. So the power is so insidious. It is so evil. Most people cannot imagine. These people are playing God. And what I've learned, Kev, is those who try to play God become devils. And that is what we're talking about now. We're talking about being ruled by devils. You can call it algorithms. You can call it intelligence agents, surveillance role players, whatever. But they're devils. And as we move to the cyborg realm, then we're really talking about soulless beings who then can do what their masters tell them to do. In other words, go take out this person who might commit a crime, etc., because we've changed his memories, etc. I mean, the level of invasion is such that you're no longer autonomous, you're no longer sovereign as a human being. That's why it feels like Blade Runner.
It is, and we're almost at the end of this, what sounds like a script for a Hollywood movie. The sad truth is that this is reality. Virtual reality, it sounds like to me, but this is the world we're moving into. And I've really appreciated the Doc coming along tonight to share his research into this topic. I've brought it up time after time with the Doc, and I'm really, really grateful that he took time out to take a look at this. And we're all the wiser for the information that we now have to go and use as